Hello friends and welcome to the daily current affairs session. So I am Snigdha, and as you might be all aware that I, Snigdha, here every Thursday take the current affairs related to your international relations part, right? So now we are into the 33rd week of our discussion into these current affairs. Over the past weeks we have discussed a lot of important current affairs related to IR and even other subjects throughout the week that will be very helpful for you to prepare for your examination, right? So I have come up with now two more important topics for your examination perspective, that is ASEAN and RCEP. ASEAN we discussed in detail in the last week's video. Now we will be talking about RCEP, very much related to the ASEAN, right? That is why the two are interlinked. So I'll briefly discuss ASEAN once more. ASEAN, the group of 10 countries, right, in this South Asian region, right, Southeast Asian region, comprising of broadly these 10 countries like Vietnam, Laos, Cambodia, Myanmar, Philippines, Brunei, right? So like that there are 10 such countries that form the group of Association of Southeast Asian Nations, that is ASEAN. Right, that is what we discussed. We discussed the objectives of ASEAN, mainly prosperity is the focus of the grouping, right? Then why is this grouping very important for India? This is very important part. See the details in the last video why this grouping is very relevant for India, that we discussed in detail, right? Now the topic for today is RCEP, right? What is RCEP? Why there is so much discussion about RCEP in the news every now and then? We keep hearing about this term RCEP. What is it and what is its significance for India? That all we will discuss in today's video, right? Now first of all, what RCEP is? So it is Regional Comprehensive Economic Partnership, right? So as you might understand from the name itself, it's a regional initiative, right? It is not a global initiative or a multinational, you can say, initiative. It's a regional, belonging to the region of South Asia and you can say Southeast Asia. Okay, Southeast Asia matlab all the ASEAN countries will be the members, and Southeast Asia may include countries like India, right? So that is why it's a regional, comprehensive, that is all inclusive, will try to include as much as possible goods and products possible, right? Economic partnership, right? So what is it? RCEP is a regional initiative to ensure economic partnership basically, right? So ये कुछ आप नाम से ही समझ सकते हैं कि ये एक रीजन में रिस्ट्रिक्टेड होगा और ये उनकी इकोनॉमिक पार्टनरशिप या कोऑपरेशन पे फोकस करेगा, right? Now what is RCEP actually? RCEP is basically a economic agreement between the ASEAN nations and their 6 FTA partners, right? FTA, now FTA here denotes free trade agreement. As you all know, you might have studied about it in economy or in IR also, you get to know that countries, they sign free trade agreements giving, reducing the kind of barriers that can be there on the export and imports of goods, right? For example, let's say there are two countries A and B, they want to boost the trade between themselves, right? There can be many barriers in the trade. For example, there can be custom duties, right? There can be import taxes, there can be various kind of prohibitions or charges that are there when the goods are coming from this country towards this country, right? Now these countries, they want to boost their trade, they have decided to deepen their economic partnership. So what will they do? They can sign an FTA under which they will promise to reduce all these kind of restrictions that are happening in their bilateral trade, right? So after FTA, you will see that these countries will have reduced barriers and they are able to trade freely now after the FTA, right? So that is basically a free trade agreement where you reduce the duties, taxes, prohibitions or charges that are levied from imports coming from another country, right? So ASEAN region, it has already signed such FTA with 6 countries, right? Which are those 6 countries? So these countries include Australia, New Zealand, right, China, Japan, South Korea and India, right? ये 6 आपको याद रखनी है. These are the 6 FTA partners of RCEP, right? Australia, New Zealand, Japan, China, South Korea and India, right? These are the 6 FTA partners of ASEAN nations. All these ASEAN countries, they have signed FTA with these countries. That means ASEAN nations are able to freely trade with these countries on an individual basis, right? So अब आप सोचेंगे कि if they have the FTA, what is the need of RCEP for ASEAN, right? So see, RCEP will provide all these countries a kind of free trade area, right? Now currently ASEAN has FTA with all these countries, right? These countries might also have FTAs with each other, right? But now through RCEP they are trying to create a regional free area where the trade can be smooth, barrier free, taxes can be less, right? So आप देखिए कि पूरे साउथ ईस्ट एशियन रीजन जो ये हमने अभी मैप में देखा, see, so basically in this entire region now the free trade can happen if we have RCEP. The RCEP endeavors to ensure free trade in this entire region as a whole, right? Individually ये countries एक दूसरे के साथ they might have FTAs with each other, but through RCEP they are all coming together to create such a area, such an economic partnership where the trade can be barrier free, can be smoother than it has been, right? So regionally there will be lesser restriction. This region as a whole can grow economically if they have RCEP, right? RCEP ke behind you are getting the vision, right? So RCEP is basically a mega regional, big regional economic agreement negotiated since 2012. 2012 से they are trying to establish the RCEP, right, between the ASEAN members. ASEAN में कितने members हैं? Tell me in the comment box. Last class में discuss किया था. ASEAN in total has 10 members plus the 16 FTA partners, right? And the basic idea is to enhance economic ties with the region, right? To enhance economic ties in the region, so that all the countries of the region, they are able to benefit from the free trade that they can have with each other, right? So that is the basic idea behind RCEP. Now what is the significance of RCEP? Why RCEP is important? Why is such a economic integration of the 10 ASEAN nations with their 6 FTA partners is essential? What is the significance? Why such a RCEP agreement is happening? That is also important for us to know. Why such integration will be helpful or significant for the countries, right? Why are they indulging in this partnership? There should be a strong reason. So see, the reason behind this is the facts that you see here. This entire RCEP area, it incorporates almost 30% of the global GDP, right? When you combine all the countries of RCEP, you will see that it has a global GDP of 28%, right? They also have a global trade share of 28% and they also have a global population of 30% and so, right? So when you see all these countries, these are the ASEAN nations. If anyone of you has doubt, check these countries. These are the 10 ASEAN nations. then ASEAN plus 3 are these 3, and then ASEAN plus 5 includes Australia and New Zealand also, right? India has decided to not be part of RCEP, that is why it is not mentioned here. Currently these 15 countries are the member of RCEP, right? So now RCEP is significant because of its economic weight. This RCEP will comprise almost 30% of the world's GDP. It will comprise 30% of the world's trade. It also comprises 30% of the world's population. That means 30% of the world's market is being occupied by RCEP, right? Is being occupied by RCEP, right? So that is why this RCEP agreement is very crucial, because it can boost the trade ties, the commerce ties between the member countries in a lot way, in a bigger way. So all these ASEAN countries and all the other countries, they can sell their products, they can trade their products with the other nations and earn lot of revenue from that. They will be expanding their markets beyond their own domestic markets to the rest of the markets of the region, right? So for example, by being a member of RCEP, Vietnam, let's say Vietnam, it will be able to sell beyond its boundary, right? So that means it will be able to earn more profit from the products it is selling to the outside market. Let's say घर के अंदर they have only 100 people to whom they can sell their products, but you see in this RCEP region, in total there are, let's say, 1 lakh people that are residing, right? So now Vietnam will have free access to this additional market of 1 lakh population also, right? So it has not, it does not see the limitation of selling to just 100 people within its boundary. It can sell and earn money to this 1 lakh people also that are outside its national territory but in this region, right? So जितना फ्री ट्रेड होगा, जितनी बैरियर्स कम होगी, उतना वियतनाम के लिए बाहर की कंट्रीज़ के साथ ट्रेड करना ईजियर होगा. दैट मीन्स इट विल बी एबल टू अर्न मोर एंड मोर मनी बाय सेलिंग its goods freely to the regional countries, the nations of the region, right? इसीलिए RCEP बहुत essential है, because it will allow free exchange of goods and services for the member countries, right? For example, another significance का हम example ले सकते हैं. Let's say Indonesia, a member of RCEP, it has shortage of, let's say, petroleum products. It is facing severe shortage of petroleum products. It is highly dependent on imports of petroleum products from outside, right? Now if it's a member of RCEP, then there can be countries like India who also aspire to be part of RCEP. They can freely, without much restrictions, sell the petroleum products to Indonesia, right? Can sell their products, right? So अगर किसी कंट्री को किसी प्रोडक्ट की बहुत हैवी या असेंशियल नीड है, they can get it freely and easily by being a part of RCEP, as the trade and the movement of those products will be barrier free, will be less restrictive, right? So आपको समझ आ रहा है कि कैसे ये FTAs, कैसे ये इकोनॉमिक पार्टनरशिप्स हेल्प करती हैं, राइट? ट्रेड एंड कमर्स आपका जो है वो बहुत स्मूथ हो जाता है, एंड इट इंक्रीजेज इन क्वांटम, राइट, गिविंग इकोनॉमिक बेनिफिट्स टू द नेशन. अब जितना इस एग्जाम्पल में बैक, the more production Vietnam involves in, the more employment will be there. पहले ये सिर्फ 100 shirts, let's say, it was producing, but now it wants to sell to these 1 lakh people also. Now it wants to produce 1 lakh t-shirts. That means it will have to employ more people also, right? So in free trade का benefit क्या होता है? You boost the trade, you boost your industrial sector, you boost your job opportunities, एंड यू सी आपको कस्टमर केयर की सर्विसेज भी चाहिए होंगी. अगर लोग आपके प्रोडक्ट्स खरीद रहे हैं, दे नीड टू कंप्लेन, दे नीड टू टॉक ऑल्सो. दैट मीन्स कस्टमर सर्विसेज इज नथिंग बट योर सर्विसेज sector, right? So see, in boosting your trade with the outside world, you are creating revenue for your economy, you are boosting your industries, by increasing the production, you are pushing your services sector in the form of customer care services, in the form of banking services, in the form of financial services, in the form of digital services, telecommunication services. किसी भी तरीके से आप expand कर सकते हैं, right? And then you will be creating in turn lot of jobs in your economy. Right? I hope you are getting this point. That is why RCEP is very important, because it will boost trade and investment across these countries, across the member countries. Right? Now when trades and investment boost, it boosts your industrial sector, it boosts your services sector also. आप productions जो हैं that will increase, production levels will increase, right? And this will mean creation of jobs, creation of new revenue for your GDP, right? जैसे जैसे ट्रेड बढ़ेगा, RCEP की वजह से there will be freer trade. Freer trade, that means increased trade. Trade quantum will increase, and when increased trade and movement of investments is there, it will boost the industrial sector, services sectors of the member countries, leading to job creation and boosting their GDPs, right? जैसे हमने वियतनाम की example ली, right? Try to link it with that, right? Now that is why this is very crucial, this RCEP is very crucial, right? Secondly, it is important for India because India will get the required connectivity to the Southeast Asian countries. India has been trying to leverage the potential of this ASEAN market. India is a big economy. India is aspiring to sell its products, services to the outside world, and ASEAN can act as a great market for India's trade. For that, India needs connectivity, and RCEP can provide that connectivity, right? Also, connecting with Southeast Asia is an important part of India's Act East policy. You might have read about Act East policy. It is nothing but India's endeavors to get concretely linked with the countries in Southeast Asia, right? So that India can benefit from trade ties, trade in goods or in services. India can put its investments there. India can counter check the presence of any other dominant party in the region, right? So India wants to maintain a strong connect with the Southeast Asian region to ensure its economic interest and to also ensure its strategic interests of preventing any other country from gaining dominance in this region, predominantly China, right? So Act East policy को भी successful बनाने के लिए RCEP is a very significant development for India, right? Now further, since you want to connect with RCEP, it is the Northeast that will be your connectivity point towards the RCEP. देखिए, let me just show you on a map. Right, so this is basically your ASEAN region lying to the southeast of Asia, right? Now this is your Northeast India. Now when India wants to connect with the Southeast Asian nations, it will pass through the northeast of area, right? Especially countries like Myanmar that provide us the connectivity to Southeast Asia, right? So when India will try to implement its Act East policy, when India will try to connect with the Southeast Asian regions, that means it will be passing through the northeast of India, right? So India can also ensure the development of its northeast when it wants to engage with the Southeast Asian nations under RCEP, right? So you can sell your products of Northeast to this RCEP countries. You can send the Northeast youth as teachers, doctors, accountants, lawyers to these Southeast Asian countries, right? So in different ways Northeast can see the development, as economic activity from Northeast will get boosted as it is connected with the ASEAN region through the RCEP, right? So अगला significance इस RCEP का है कि it will give an opportunity for India to develop its Northeast, right? So these are broadly the advantages. Now what are the issues India has? As you might be aware, India has decided to stay out of RCEP. जब इतने फ़ायदे हैं RCEP के इंडिया के लिए, then why has India decided to stay out of RCEP? That is a very crucial topic that you should know, because it is high potential that this will be asked in any of the examination in which you are appearing. This can be a high potential question. So why is that India decided to remain out of RCEP? So there are multiple reasons. Let's discuss one by one. First of all, India has a huge trade deficit with the RCEP nations, right? RCEP as a total grouping आप देखेंगे, so India has a huge trade deficit with the with almost 11 out of the current 15 countries of RCEP. Majority of these countries, they are exporting their products to India and India is not able to leverage their market as such. ठीक है, इंडिया का ट्रेड उनकी तरफ इतना ज़्यादा नहीं है जितना उनका एक्सपोर्ट्स हमारी तरफ है. That means they are benefiting by selling their products to India, but India is not able to leverage those benefits by selling them to those countries, right? सो ऑलरेडी देखिए इंडिया के FTAs इन सब कंट्रीज़ के साथ हैं. सो उन FTAs के अंडर हमारे अगेंस्ट वैसे ही ट्रेड डेफिसिट बहुत बड़ा हुआ है. वी हैव बीन फॉलिंग शॉर्ट ऑफ सेलिंग आर प्रोडक्ट्स. देन इफ़ वी अलाउ RCEP ऑल्सो, दैट मीन्स मोर प्रोडक्ट्स आर गोइंग टू कम combinedly from this region and they are going to flood Indian markets, right? So because of this high trade deficit that India has with majority of the countries in RCEP, India refrained from RCEP, right? Second major issue is the trade deficit that we have with China. Now China is a dominant nation in RCEP और China आपको पता है it is a factory of the entire world. It has been producing number of goods and selling to the entire world. Now you see, if you provide them barrier free market, what will they do to your own domestic market? You see, अभी हमारी इंडिया में there are so many products that are coming from China. These clothing brands are coming up, Shein and all, you might be aware. Then the mobile phone brands are coming, Xiaomi, Oppo, जो आप बढ़ चढ़ के ले रहे हैं. हमारे जो domestic brands हैं, Micromax and others, they have been finished by these the products that are coming from outside. So you see, if you allow China more open access to your market, slowly all of your domestic players might get vanished away or washed away from the cheaper imports that are coming from China. China sells the products at very cheap prices, so that is why our domestic players, they are not able to compete with the Chinese products. So already with China we have a huge trade deficit running to 50-60 billion or even more now, right? आप latest figures देख सकते हैं. 54 तक चल रहा था at the COVID time, because of some trade was restricted, so थोड़ा कम हुआ था. Still 54 billion was there. Now it is expected that it is around $70 billion. So already we had so much huge trade deficit with China. How can we allow more products to come from China? Cheaper Chinese products will flood Indian market, right? आप suppose कीजिए कि you are selling, let's say you are a toy seller in the Indian market, you are doing very good business in Batinda, maybe let's say you are selling your products there. Now India signs RCEP, China starts selling its goods via RCEP, and now China has a huge toy industry, one of the the largest toy industry in the world. Now they will start selling their cheaper toys into the Batinda market also. People will not like to buy your expensive products, they will want to buy the cheaper and innovative toys coming from China. Your own domestic market, your own shop, आपकी खुद की दुकान बंद हो जाएगी, right? So the cheaper products that China sells, that damages the Indian domestic players, and that is why India is trying to refrain from the negative impacts that India might have to face if it indulges in RCEP, right? So that is why India has again decided to stay out of RCEP, right? Now related to this is another issue, rules of origin. जब आप WTO पढ़ेंगे you will get to know, इकोनॉमी में आपको पढ़ाया जाएगा WTO. In that there are different kind of rules and regulations related to trade are there. One such rule is rule of origin, where one should get to know that from where the product is originating. अगर मेरे हाथ में ये पेन है, there should be some stamp or some identity proof on this product for me to know the country of origin of this product, right? That is why आप देखिए कि आप कुछ भी कपड़े पहनते हैं, आपके पास बैग्स है, आपके पास कुछ भी है, उस पर कुछ ना कुछ लिखा होगा, made in China, made in Philippines, made in Vietnam, made in Dubai. You will always see those tags, right? So they are basically to identify the origin of that product, right? So now what is the issue here? That India says that there are no clear rules to identify the origin of any product, right? For example, अब इससे issue क्या होगा? Let's say China is selling its products to India, but what it does is it, kind of sets up, let's say, its businesses in Vietnam, its companies, they set up their businesses in Vietnam and they start selling their products to India, right? सो हमारी तरफ चाइना से भी प्रोडक्ट्स आ रहे हैं, चाइना के RCEP से भी प्रोडक्ट्स आ रहे हैं, एंड नाउ चाइनीज़ कंपनीज आर ऑल्सो सेलिंग देयर प्रोडक्ट्स फ्रॉम वियतनाम एज वेल, राइट? सो यू सी we have a huge trade deficit with China already. With this kind of trade engagement under RCEP, the deficit will zoom to sky, right? We may even not get to know कि ये company जो है ये Chinese company है. Let's just say they can even modulate the rules of origin. बहुत तरीके से trade की origin को hide करने की कोशिश की जाती है, products के origin को कंसील करने की कोशिश की जाती है. सो इंडिया इज़ वरीड दैट इंडिया विल नॉट गेट टू नो दैट फ्रॉम वेयर एक्चुअली द प्रोडक्ट्स आर ओरिजिनेटिंग, एंड इन दैट इट माइट हैपन दैट द चाइनीज़ चीपर गुड्स, they may end up flooding the Indian market because there are no strong rules of origin that are there in this RCEP agreement, right? So because of this problem, rules of origin are not clear, or it may not help India very well in protecting its domestic market. That is why also India has decided to stay out of this agreement, right? सो आप देखिए, इंडिया को डर यही है कि ये जो अग्रीमेंट है इंडिया को नुकसान ज़्यादा कर सकता है और फ़ायदे कम करेगा. बाकी कंट्रीज़ को फ़ायदा होगा, इंडिया की 1.3 बिलियन पॉपुलेशन की मार्केट इन सब कंट्रीज़ को मिलेगी, स्पेशली चाइना को मिलेगी. दैट इज़ वाई दे आर सो मच इंटरेस्टेड इन गेटिंग इंडिया ऑन बोर्ड इन RCEP. बट यू सी, इंडिया के लिए तो थ्रेट ही थ्रेट हैं, राइट? यहाँ से चीपर प्रोडक्ट्स आएंगे, यहाँ से कैसे रूट करके इधर को इंडिया की तरफ चीप प्रोडक्ट्स आ रहे हैं, इंडिया माइट नॉट गेट टू नो, राइट? सो द इशू ऑफ ट्रेड डेफिसिट्स, cheaper products, rules of origin, they have become a very big worry for India, because of which India decided to stay out of the agreement, right? So these were the first few reasons why India abstained, you can say, from being part of RCEP, right? Now another set of issues is auto trigger mechanism, right? Now India said, let's say that we allow you to export, let's say 500 shirts to our market, ठीक है? Under RCEP we will allow you free trade up till 500 shirts. But let's say that products from one country, they start coming in huge numbers. Let's say कि 500 की बजाय now 50,000 shirts are coming to Indian market from the RCEP countries, right? This will be a threatening situation, right? जब let's say इंडिया की मार्केट में सिर्फ 5,000 प्रोडक्ट्स की स्पेस है, Now we have allowed you to sell your 500 products, but now if you are pushing in thousands, that will destroy the domestic market again, right? So what did India say? That we should put a limit कि अगर 500 से ज़्यादा shirts आई, then we can raise the barriers, we can restrict the imports that are coming into our country. That is why India introduced the concept of auto trigger mechanism कि barriers अपने आप trigger हो जाने चाहिए if the imports from a country are huge imports that can wipe out the domestic market. So such auto trigger mechanism India proposed कि ऐसा auto trigger mechanism रखते हैं कि जब imports जो हैं वो बहुत huge quantity में हमारी country में आए तो हम उनको कुछ barriers लगा सके, right? So this was also not accepted by RCEP, and that is why India decided to stay out of it, right? नाउ नेक्स्ट पॉइंट, ट्रेड एंड सर्विसेज पे कोई क्लैरिटी नहीं है. सी इंडिया में गुड्स इतनी इंडस्ट्रियल सेक्टर इज नॉट दैट बिग एज द सर्विसेज सेक्टर. आप देखिए हमारे IT सेक्टर इज बूमिंग, राइट? BPO सेक्टर इज बूमिंग इन इंडिया. टीचिंग, लॉयर्स, professionals are in high numbers in India. Engineers, doctors are high in number. All of these compose of trade in services, and here also the rules, the barriers have not been lowered by the RCEP. ठीक है, सिर्फ गुड्स में ट्रेड अलाउ किया है जो कि चाइना के लिए बेनिफिशियल है. इट इज़ दी फैक्ट्री ऑफ द वर्ल्ड, इट वांट्स टू सेल इट्स प्रोडक्ट्स, राइट? अदर कंट्रीज ऑल्सो, वियतनाम वगैरह में भी ये फ़ायदा है उनको, बट इंडिया को कहाँ फ़ायदा है? इंडिया वांट्स टू सेल इट्स सर्विसेज, बट देयर RCEP हैज़ नॉट गिवन एनी कंक्रीट बैरियर फ्री एंट्री टू इंडियाज सर्विसेज. सो इंडिया सेड व्हाई शुड वी ज्वाइन, हमें क्या ही फ़ायदा है यहाँ इसका पार्टिसिपेट बनने का, राइट? नेक्स्ट थ्रेट इज टू इंडियाज एग्रीकल्चर एंड डेयरी सेक्टर, राइट? इंडिया में आप देखिए अमूल, वेरका वगैरह, देर आर लॉट ऑफ कंपनीज दैट आर वर्किंग इन इंडिया इन दी डेयरी सेक्टर. नाउ यू सी ऑस्ट्रेलिया एंड न्यूजीलैंड ऑल्सो अ मेंबर ऑफ RCEP, they have huge dairy industry, right? And they want to leverage India's market for this dairy products, but India is refraining that because India की domestic market again खराब हो जाएगी. अमूल वगैरह, they do not want India to allow free market to these products because these products will destroy the domestic players like Amul, राइट? सो अगर हमने बाहर से प्रोडक्ट्स अलाउ कर दिए ऑस्ट्रेलिया न्यूजीलैंड से अंडर RCEP डील, then our domestic farmers, our domestic livestock rearers, they will be vanished, they will be wiped out, or they will have to serve under these companies. तो हमारे अमूल जैसे cooperatives है जहाँ पे हमारे farmers जो हैं खुद अपना they bring their product and earn their living, that all will get destroyed, and even our Indian players, our Indian companies will be impacted. So बहुत बड़ा threat है अपनी agriculture और dairy sector को from the products that will be coming from New Zealand, Australia at cheaper rates. So that is why, इसीलिए तो आप देखिए country delight वगैरह आपको बहुत cheap rates पे provide कर रहे हैं products now, called as predatory pricing also sometimes, not every time, right? That is, they are coming from these countries only, they are not domestic brands, right? So that is the another issue. Then anything else that is left, non-tariff barriers, right? So अब टैक्सेस वगैरह कम करने की तो RCEP में बात की गई है, बट देर आर नॉन टैरिफ बैरियर्स ऑल्सो. नॉन टैरिफ बैरियर्स कैसे होते हैं? क्वालिटी बैरियर्स लगा दिए. जैसे इंडिया के प्रोडक्ट्स जब भी यूरोप में जाते हैं वहाँ पे अल्फांसो मैंगो आपने बहुत सुना होगा, इंडिया ट्राइज टू सेल दोज मैंगोज टू यूरोप, बट दे many times they reject our products citing the quality issues कि इसका क्वालिटी ख़राब है, आपने फर्टिलाइज़र्स ज़्यादा यूज़ किए हैं, हमारे फूड स्टैंडर्ड्स के अकॉर्डिंग दे डू नॉट मीट, राइट? सो ऐसे बहुत सारे सैनिटरी एंड फाइटो सैनिटरी मेजर्स आर ऑल्सो देयर दैट आर लेवाइड, सो दे एक्ट एज बैरियर्स टू द ट्रेड. अब आप उनको बेचना चाहते हैं मैंगोज, बट दे खरीद नहीं रहे हैं, उन्होंने टैक्स नहीं लगाया आप पे, बट नॉन टैक्स बैरियर, दैट इज क्वालिटेटिव बैरियर दे हैव इम्पोज्ड. सो सच बैरियर्स आर ऑल्सो इम्पोज्ड ऑन इंडिया बाई कंट्रीज लाइक चाइना. जब इंडिया चाइना को प्रोडक्ट्स बेचना चाहता है, many times it happens that China imposes such sanitary phytosanitary measures, SPS measures they are called, they are imposed by China, राइट. सो व्हाट विल इंडिया डू? इंडिया को ना तो सर्विसेज के लिए मार्केट मिल रही है, ना इंडिया को बैरियर्स, नॉन टैरिफ बैरियर्स कम किए जा रहे हैं. व्हाट विल इंडिया डू नाउ बीइंग पार्ट ऑफ RCEP? इट इज़ काइंड ऑफ लूजिंग ऑन एवरी एंगल, right? So that is why, because of these multiple reasons where India does not see any benefit for itself, rather the other countries will be flooding their products into Indian market and destroying Indian domestic economy. That is why India has tried to stay out of this agreement, right? Obviously India is not benefiting a lot. Why should India be a part? Right? अपना नुकसान कराने के लिए तो इंडिया कैन नॉट बी द पार्ट. दैट इज़ वाई इंडिया हैज़ फॉर नाउ डिसाइडेड टू स्टे आउट ऑफ द अग्रीमेंट. दीज आर द इम्पॉर्टेंट पॉइंट्स. अगर आप ये 8 पॉइंट्स याद कर लेंगे ना, दैट इज़ इनफ, राइट. अब इससे इम्पैक्ट क्या होगा विड्रॉल का? सी, RCEP प्रोवाइडेड अस अ ह्यूज मार्केट, राइट. वो हम नहीं लीवरेज कर पाएंगे. मार्केट ऑफ RCEP जो हमने कहा 30% ऑफ ग्लोबल पॉपुलेशन है, दैट वी विल नॉट बी एबल टू एक्सेस सिंस वी आर नॉट द मेंबर ऑफ RCEP, राइट. एंड आवर टाइज दैट वी आर ट्राइंग टू बूस्ट, एक्ट ईस्ट पॉलिसी जो हम ASEAN के साथ स्ट्रेंथन करना चाहते हैं, दैट विल ऑल्सो बी इम्पैक्टेड, राइट. So that is how our bilateral ties will be impacted and we will not be able to access a huge market. So ये impact तो है, but see, India is trying to see the cost benefit analysis. The costs are not as high, the costs are very high than the benefits of joining the RCEP. इंडिया को बेनिफिट हो सकता है मार्केट का, एक्ट ईस्ट पॉलिसी का, नॉर्थ ईस्ट डेवलपमेंट का, बट जो नुकसान इंडिया को होगा दैट इज़ इवन हायर. दैट इज़ हाउ द इंडियन गवर्नमेंट सीज इट एंड दैट इज़ वाई इट हैज़ डिसाइडेड टू नॉट बी पार्ट ऑफ इट, राइट. सो that is all about RCEP. RCEP is very important for you. You must read all these points, make a note of them, and जब भी आंसर आए आप ये points broadly mention कर सकते हैं. It will fetch you a lot of marks. ठीक है, ये 8 points आप याद कर ले, that is enough. Right, now this is the question that you can write for the mains practice. Critically analyze the reasons of India's decision to stay out of the trade pact between ASEAN and its 6 FTA partners, right? Critically analyze is the key word here, right? So you have to write all the reasons why India stayed out and then analyze also that why India's decision is right and what can be the implications, right? इस तरीके से इसको एड्रेस करने की कोशिश कीजिए. वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट टॉपिक. आई होप you have understood this. If you have any doubts, post it in the comment section. Thank you so much for joining.